everybody. This is Paula Harris, and this is the first time I've done this in a while. I usually don't do uh, recordings for the class, but this class is really extraordinary because you have done high level work, but mostly you're also interacting with each other, which has always been my dream, but it never happens. It never happens in classes like everybody does their own work and they don't read anything else. Well, unfortunately, that's what happens in our field in ufology. They can never put the pieces of the puzzle together because they don't read each other's work. Before I donated everything to Rice University, I had 300 books here and read all my research, all of my colleagues' research. Otherwise, how could I ever question them? What kinds of questions would I ask if I never read their books or their research? It doesn't make any sense. The way that I do my work is I'm a college professor type person who has to give you books and material to read of first hand sources, not videos that are rehashed opinions. I always say opinion is not research. Now, my book, Connecting the Dots, has just been translated to Spanish, Chinese, and Japanese. And that book, and this is the cover of the book that people should read, has the interviews that I'm giving you, not only with Colonel Corso, as you can see me here, but with Zachariah Sitchin, John Mack, the daughter of Kenneth Arnold, Monsignor Balducci, David Icke, Jacques Vallée, everybody, Edgar Mitchell, the astronauts. Everybody that I've asked questions of because I'm personally curious to hear what's going on. So what I'm giving you is also been translated as the kind of an encyclopedia of UFOs. But what I want to talk to you about today is a Hollomon landing because there's more to, and I would type forever if I had to give you the background of the Hollomon landing. In 1997, first of all, I'm living in Italy from 1992, teaching at the American Overseas School of Rome until 2007. So what happened was that my boss sent me to the 50th anniversary of Roswell, and that's where I got the Colonel Corso story because I happened to have the room next to him at the Sallyport Inn. It was a big party. It was the 50th anniversary of the Roswell crash. Of course, I had interviewed everybody, the mortician, Walter Hott, just everybody. I had done that years before. But on this particular occasion, everybody was there from Linda Howe, Bud Hopkins, Whitley Strieber, Colonel Corso, just everybody. John Mack was there. Everybody was there because it was the 50th anniversary and that's where they were all meeting. However, I was a foreign journalist. So Victoria Paccaccini, who had just done the Virginia case in Brazil, and if you want to know more about that, you can watch the film by James Fox called Moment of Contact. He just did that movie on Virginia last year. But I had met in 1997, I had met the guy that actually did it, Vittorio Paccaccini, and he and I were invited to the home of Clifford Stone. Clifford Stone is very famous because of crash retrieval. I helped Clifford Stone write his book, Eyes Only. This is about crash retrieval. The reason why Clifford Stone is so important, he was part of the Disclosure Project, but he had interacted with live and dead aliens because he was part of the recovery team. 3 of his 12 recoveries were in Vietnam. So I was the journalist closest to him, and I was close to him until he died last year in February. And so I had all his files shipped to Rice University, where my archive is. So Clifford Stone's important because what had happened was I didn't know him then, and the only foreign journalists, the 2 of us, went to his house. Nobody else bothered. They were too busy partying with all their fans and, at bars and stuff. And Clifford had invited all of them to his house. They never appreciated who he really was. His house was in Roswell on 2nd Street. And, we went because I don't know, we just thought he's going to show us something. So what he had done is throw all this microfilm in a big canister with an old label. I think it was 1950s or 1960s label on coffee table, and I was told to film everything. So I'm filming this stuff, and I didn't realize he had thrown the Hollomon landing the first 8 minutes on a coffee table because I didn't know anything about the Hollomon landing, and I read the label, but it didn't mean anything to me. So I sent all this film footage back FedEx to Rome to my boss. At that time, I was writing for Area 51. Maurizio, my boss, said, Paula, the Hollomon landing was right on the coffee table. Why didn't you look at it? But I didn't know what it was anyway. And so I called Clifford Stone and I said, why didn't you tell me that you had the Hollomon landing film here? He said, because it was a test. And he explained, he said, look, he said, the CIA gave me the first 8 minutes of the Hollomon landing. He said, and they said, none of these researchers really care about the real story. They won't come over your house. But if they should, and they see this canister, you show them the first 8 minutes of the Hollomon landing. Well, the only two that went were not the movie stars. It was just me and Paccaccini. And I didn't know what it was. So I said, Clifford, but you could have told me. I would love to have seen it. And he goes, no, that wasn't part of the deal, Paula. I said, but can you tell me what was on it? And this is why I'm making this video. Because what was on it was everything in the film It Has Begun. And I know you have to pay for it. And at one time, you know, it was free. You could watch it. It's the Emenager film, the Robert Emenager film. It Has Begun. The book on this is called UFOs Past, Present, and Future. And It Has Begun has 3 minutes. And I think I gave you the video links of real Hollomon landing. The craft was a circular type Orbish craft that came down. And the beings that came off of that craft were Semitic looking. They had dark curly black hair and hooked noses and were wearing, we all agree, it's the only thing everybody can agree on because mythology said they were grays and they were not Nordics. They were Semitic looking. They were dark haired looking. And they had maroon outfits. And so Clifford explained to me, he said, what they're showing you in drawing form, and they're telling you, and this is Rod Serling with Jacques Vallée, Burgess Meredith, what they're showing you is what's the first 8 minutes of that film. The craft landing, hovering, and then these limousines with these military officers coming. And so, yeah, so that's why I'm telling you, if you could watch it, it gives you a real clear picture because Clifford himself told me, and he had the film there. It's one of those things where, thank God, he told me because I realized it was real. And then later on in one of my books, I think it's Exopolitics, All the Above and Beyond, or it could be Exopolitics, Stargate to a New Reality. I interviewed Bill Kirkland himself, who Michael Salla had interviewed, who was actually there that day when the cafeteria was closed and everybody was pulled in the cafeteria and what's his name, Eisenhower, was supposed to go to a dentist, but he was really at Hollomon. So I interviewed an actual person that was there. I only do firsthand interviews. And then to add to this, the comment was made about Gene Roddenberry, but I found out from Phyllis Schlemmer, Andrea Polharich, who brought Uri Geller to Stanford Research Institute. Phyllis Schlemmer herself came to see me and discussed the whole Council of Nine thing, which I think if we didn't cover it yet, it might be in the quantum cosmology class. Those non-human intelligences were coming through Phyllis Schlemmer and Andrea Polharich, who worked for the CIA. And the thing is this, Phyllis Schlemmer was the medium, and she tells me, and she comes to Boulder to talk to me, so it isn't like any kind of gossip. She tells me that Gene Roddenberry was at her house for 3 months and was channeling Tom of the Council of Nine, who during the New Age jumped the whole New Age movement. The whole thing on the Council of Nine is something to study. And I said, well, what did he do? And she said, well, he basically, through my throat, she actually doesn't channel, she leaves her body, and a male voice comes through, asked about many, many questions. The name of the book is The Only Planet of Choice. And I really suggest you start a library. In The Only Planet of Choice is Gene Roddenberry talking to what's his name? Tom of the Nine, and that's where Deep Space Nine comes from, all the Nine stuff. So that is Gene Roddenberry. I think Jillian had mentioned that, but Gene Roddenberry was channeling these disembodied entities here. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you is, and it's in my 109 class, which is really my favorite class. I went back to the 1950s to study Adamski, Van Tassel, Menger, Val Thor, and all those people firsthand. I went to High Bridge in New Jersey. I went to Giant Rock. I went out to Landers, California. And one of the survivors of that group of people in that conference generated 32,000 people in the summer, 1952. That's when Adamski met Orthon. I mean, we need to go back to the future. I brought one of the survivors out there at Giant Rock, Robert Short, and I'll talk about him extensively in another video. But he did what Phyllis Schlemmer did, left his body, and this male voice came through him, and he did a channeling. And Robert Short is on my YouTube channel. He's an older guy. He just died at 90. And he told me that he was involved with the making of The Day the Earth Stood Still, and that Michael Rennie, the British actor, had no script for that speech at the end. That Robert Wise says we have no script, and Michael Rennie said, I'll make something up. That was channeled information. I think that someone should do some kind of research on all messages we're getting from outer space. That was channeled information that came through The Day the Earth Stood Still, because that story is really the Val Thor case. And Val Thor really was real. We went back to High Bridge, New Jersey 3 years ago to the Howard Menger, place. And Val Thor and Don and Jill were sitting in his lawn. I have the letter of the photographer. I have what the photographer told Wendell Stevens. We asked George Filer to come with us, Filer's Files. And George Filer had worked as an attaché for Curtis LeMay. He's now 91. He came and he said, Paula, he said, when I was working at the Pentagon, we had a spaceman in the cafeteria. I was told that when I went to the offices of Curtis LeMay. I said, are you talking about Stranger in the Pentagon, Val Thor? He says, that's why I'm here. He said, because you guys are coming back to the place where Val Thor was sitting. And I said, well, then it's all true. Then the spaceman did land near the Pentagon, and he did try to talk to the president and all of this stuff, which is the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Just like Robert Evanacre told me, he was hauled in to do It Has Begun, and he was promised more real film. And if It Has Begun is back in the 1960s, that came out, or 70s, it's when Rod Serling was alive, then we got to look at connecting these dots, that Hollywood is a mechanism for disclosure, but look at the story behind it. Look at the story behind Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry and all of these things, and Mission to Mars, and the ones that I'm going to give you in the future. And I've been inspired by this particular class to do a video lesson of the intense firsthand research I've done on a lot of this. A lot of this is true. Hollomon is not a mythology. And when the beings were communicating with Eisenhower, and Eisenhower and Nixon were into this up to here, it was too late, because most of the technology and most of the control had gone into, number one, the pharmaceutical companies. That's what Val Thor had gone to say, that they had lived a long time and that we got to get off pharmaceuticals, that he was going to give them some ideas about keeping the blood alkaline and everything. That was Val Thor's message. And Orthon's message with Adamski and those guys would stop the nuclear because it's dangerous, or stop weapons testing. Well, of course, somebody like Eisenhower is going to say it's in the military-industrial complex. And that, bottom line, is why you're not going to get disclosure out of Washington ever. Why would you bother? That's where all money is coming from. That's where all the money is made. So, you're not going to talk about having hidden that all these years. So may I suggest the other book that came out that I've written it with Jacques Vallée is Trinity, which is the first crash 1 month after the atomic bomb. The Trinity case is absolutely incredible, and I'll talk about that later. But I wanted to talk about the background of Hollomon because it really did happen. And Paula was really silly because Paula didn't get to see the first 8 minutes because she was not that educated. But I did meet Clifford Stone. So keep up the good work. And I will do a few more of these for you. And I hope you get to enjoy it and see it.